we're going to break down whether or not it makes sense for the Browns to pursue DeAndre Hopkins. But before we do that, I want to hear from everyone watching right now. If you want Cleveland to go out and get D-Hop, then like today's video. If you don't think DeAndre Hopkins is a good fit for the Browns, you can just type P for pass down in the comment section. Let's see if we get more likes or more comments on today's episode. We've got some pretty big news to talk about in the NFL world here on a Friday afternoon. A pretty good time for a news dump by the Cardinals as they have officially cut DeAndre Hopkins. Not a post-June cut or anything like that. He is a free agent. He can sign wherever. So will the Browns be in contention to sign him, right? We're going to kind of go through a bit of the pros, the cons, try to make some sense of whether or not the Browns would make sense for D-Hop. But first things first, I think we should all remember we are talking about Andrew Berry, or as I like to call him, Blockbuster AB, because he is always good for a big-time move. So you really can't ever rule the Browns out from being in contention for anyone, right? In the last 14 months or so, they've gotten Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore, and Zadarius Smith all through trades, and that's just the big hits, right? That's not even talking about the free agency signings now. So with the Browns, you can never quite rule them out for any big move because Cleveland's going to be doing their homework. They are an aggressive ownership. They're an aggressive front office, and they want to get the best 53-man roster possible. Now, having said all that, like I mentioned, he is a free agent now. That is DeAndre Hopkins, Tom Pelissero tweeting out, it's not a post-June 1st cut, which I thought it would be initially, but the Cardinals just want him off their books after this season. They don't want to pay him in 2024. They know they're going to be eating a lot of dead money to the tune of $22.6 million, and they get some cash back, but ultimately it seems like no one wanted to trade for DeAndre Hopkins. I don't think it's because they didn't like the player. They didn't like the contract. So to me, that signals the Cardinals weren't willing to eat as much money as other teams wanted. And at some point, I guess they figured it's not even worth the 7th-round pick. Let's just move on altogether and end this kind of a messy situation that has been the last 2 or 3 months. Now, when it comes to the Browns being in the mix, first things first, does Cleveland have the money to get the signing done? If they really wanted to, yes, after June 1st, when they get the John Johnson money and a little bit of Jadeveon Clowney money, they're going to be sitting in the neighborhood of $18 million. Just a rough estimate. Could be close to 20, could be close to 16. Either way, if they really wanted DeAndre Hopkins, like their lives depended on it, the folks in Berea could get this done from a financial standpoint. So if we check that box, now let's talk about D-Hop statistically, right? Is he still a good player? I would say yes, okay? He's only had 717 yards last season, but he only played in 9 games, right? He's only had 11 touchdowns the last 2 seasons, which I say only 11 touchdowns is still impressive, but he has missed time over the last 2 years. So kind of good and bad right there, right? He's being very productive still, but he's also not being super available as of late. So do you want to sign someone who hasn't played a full season since 2020? I don't know, Jim, right? Would DeAndre Hopkins be an exciting addition? No doubt about it. If I find out the Browns signed D-Hop, I'm not coming in here and throwing a temper tantrum. I'm going to be excited about the move. Is it necessary for the Browns? I'm going to say I don't know for now, but deep down the answer is kind of no. Another point I want to make is, would we even be talking about DeAndre Hopkins if Deshaun Watson was not the quarterback and the two overlapped in Houston, right? Is that really what's driving the bus here, reuniting Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins? Because let's say, bear with me here, Baker was the quarterback still. We would look at this wide receiver room and go, Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Elijah Moore. You signed Marquise Goodwin. You drafted Cedric Tillman. We're set. We don't need D-Hop. But because it's Deshaun Watson, right, and because the two were so prolific together in H-Town, we do sort of talk ourselves into, oh boy, could you imagine just how elite this roster would be with DeAndre Hopkins on it and reuniting him and Deshaun Watson. Now, I am here to remind you, Cleveland has already made a move for a wide receiver this offseason. Several, actually, but they went out and traded for Elijah Moore, right? And personally, I kind of want to see how that trade goes through, right? I don't want to get Elijah Moore, move on from a second-round pick to get him, a day 2 pick swap. But nevertheless, you trade for Elijah Moore, and then a couple of weeks you turn around, you sign DeAndre Hopkins, and whatever snaps Elijah Moore was going to get, you have to admit, with DeAndre Hopkins coming on this roster, that number is likely going to go down. Like, I just don't think that's a very good move by Andrew Berry to make a move for a wide receiver and then go, you know what? I know I traded a second rounder for Elijah Moore, but I also really want DeAndre Hopkins now. And I also use my first pick in the draft on a wide receiver, which doesn't have to necessarily mean he's going to be impact player in year one as a third-round pick. But two highly, cost moves were made to get better wide receivers, right? Essentially, you used your second and your third-round pick on a wide receiver. You used pick 42 to get Elijah Moore. You used pick 74 to get Cedric Tillman. So I would say the Browns are probably feeling pretty good about the wide receiver room they have built. Now, maybe they were interested in DeAndre Hopkins the whole time, but not for a trade, right? They gave Arizona a call. They asked what the asking price was. Arizona said back, we're looking for, say, a fifth rounder. And Cleveland hung up. They're like, we're not giving a fifth rounder for an aging wide receiver. Whatever pick it was, okay? And then Cleveland had another conversation where AB and the crew decided, well, we don't want him for a fifth rounder, and we don't really want to pay him for the salary he's currently on. But if there's a alternate universe that exists where we don't have to trade for him, and we don't have to pay him his contract for the next 2 seasons, well, then we'll play ball. And that's the universe we are living in now, and we're going to find out if the Browns are interested in DeAndre Hopkins at all, period, now that they don't have to give up an asset to get him, and they don't have to pay him the contract that he had in Arizona. So speaking of the Browns wide receiver room in general, before we really even talk about before we talk about DeAndre Hopkins potentially being in this wide receiver room, as it stands right now, how would you grade it? A, B, C, D, or F? I'm going to give it a solid B+. I think there is a lot of potential in this wide receiver room. You've got a wide receiver 1 in Amari Cooper, but we also just saw Elijah Moore's stats over the last 2 years. And I'm super pumped up about that move. I think he could be a 1,000-yard receiver, but we still have to see it to believe it, right? He's never actually done that in a full 16 or 17-game season. DPJ is coming off a career season. Cedric Tillman I'm super high on, but he's also still a rookie, and we know rookies are never a guaranteed thing. So I'm giving it a solid B to B+ range. Let me know what your letter grade is down below. I think when it comes to adding DeAndre Hopkins, it's sort of a win-win situation here, right? Either A, you sign DeAndre Hopkins and you now compete in what is a nuclear arms race in the AFC between Buffalo, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and we'll include other teams like Baltimore, for example, and there's no one really in the AFC South. So really just those teams right there. In the West, and the Chargers, sure. Why not toss them in as well? So the AFC is completely stacked and loaded, and you might think there's just always room to improve, right? You can't be worse with DeAndre Hopkins in 2023, most likely. So why not toss him into your locker room? Because you need all the studs and star power you can get if you want to go on a postseason run that likely includes beating 2 of these 3 teams, Cincinnati, Buffalo, and Kansas City. You likely have to do 2 of those 3 things to get to the Super Bowl. And if you think DeAndre Hopkins is going to help improve those odds, then I'm not going to stand here and say it's a bad idea to add him. Now, if you don't add DeAndre Hopkins, you still have Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman, 2 players you invested in this offseason, and you get to see them more than just develop for Tillman, but for Elijah Moore, hopefully he can step into a spot where he can be this team's top receiver or 2 for years to come. Because I've spoken at length before, there's a very good chance that Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones are not both on this roster in 2024. Cooper's got a high cap hit. DPJ's a free agent. Browns don't have a ton of cap space next year. I don't see them holding on to both players. So if you're planning for the future, might be a good idea to give Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman some runway and some snaps this year and not have Hopkins hop on this roster and push them down the depth chart. Now, having said all that, we can all agree it would still be awesome to have DeAndre Hopkins for 2023, right? Look at what he did with Deshaun Watson. 31 touchdowns, 4,700 yards. Those are insane numbers. Those are like almost franchise numbers for the Browns alone. Like, those are, great duos right there. And to have that carry over to Cleveland, I'd be lying if I said I was upset about that. So that's why I think it's a win-win, right? You either get to see Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman grow on this team because there's a good chance they are the future of this wide receiver room if they play well this year, or you get to add more star power and you get to go toe-to-toe, foot-to-foot with Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and all their plethora of weapons. Now, DeAndre Hopkins recently hopped on a podcast and he talked about, what he's looking for. It's like a international home, whatever the HGTV show is. And he was talking about what he was looking for in a team and what quarterbacks he'd like to play for. And Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert were the ones he identified. Did not have Deshaun Watson on there, which is why I'm not saying that this is a slam dunk type of move and you can, put the whole payroll on it. But things change, right? There's a chance those 5 teams might not be interested, and then DeAndre Hopkins has to go to plan 6, 7, and 8. Now, D-Hop also said what he looks for in a team, and he said, for me, that's it. Great management, a QB who loves the game, and a great defense. Well, the management's on the come-up in Cleveland, but I can't say it's absolutely perfect just yet. A quarterback who loves the game? Yeah. I mean, Deshaun Watson was at the beach in Puerto Rico diving into the playbook, Elijah Moore said during his interview after OTAs. And a great defense, Myles Garrett and Zadarius Smith, they check that box for me. So predict it. Will the Browns sign D-Hop? Do they need DeAndre Hopkins? No. Are they a wide receiver needy team right now? Absolutely not. Would it be fun? Absolutely. Could I see Andrew Berry doing it? Maybe. Raise your hand if you saw Andrew Berry trading for Zadarius Smith. I didn't. You can't quite rule him out for any move, it feels like. I know I say that to backdoor my way into the Browns always being in contention, but let's be real. They sort of are, right? I mean, with the ownership and the green light to spend money, you can't ever say the Browns are going to be out of some moves unless it really makes zero sense. And for the Browns and Kevin Stefanski in a must-win 2023 season, don't be shocked if they kind of punt on the future a little bit if they think DeAndre Hopkins can bring some extra wins or two to this team this season. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Matthew Petey. And, of course, you guys know how we end every episode. It is off-season mode, baby. Pick a card time. So I'm going to randomly shuffle this deck of cards. Go down to the comment section. Pick a random card. Let's see if you get it right. You got a 1 in 52 chance. I am 0 for 6, 0 for 7. Now, we got producer Patrick Seaman today behind the camera. What's your card?
I'm going to go...
He came in very confident, by the way.
King of Diamonds.
King of Diamonds. Now, the whole gallery here at Chat Sports is coming in. So Harrison Graham from Bears Now would like to give a prediction as well.
I'll hop on here.
Hop on. And then we'll get Tyler Jones from Seahawks today. Talk about the watch time of this video now.
Yeah, this is more than it gets to 8.
Yeah. So what's your card?
What did he guess?
So King of Diamonds off the table.
Okay, 7 of spades.
7 of spades from Harry. Tyler Jones from Seahawks today.
I'm feeling. Give me the 4s with the hearts.
4 of hearts? Yeah. You ever played cards?
It's been a long. Yeah, I can't remember the names of them.
What plan's this guy from? All right. If 4 of hearts is picked and he wins, I'm gonna be furious. I'm gonna go with 10 of hearts for DeAndre Hopkins. Kind of right? Right? Number 10, Arizona. All right, here we go. One more cut. Top card. I don't think anyone got it. 4 diamonds. Oh, 4 diamonds. Close, but not quite. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. We will see everyone tomorrow.